I used to believe our life was steady, maybe not picture perfect, but real, grounded. 15 years of marriage to Marcus had taught me the comfort of routine, the shared morning coffees, the way he always forgot his keys, the quiet way we coexisted. And Lily. Well, Lily was just part of that picture. My little sister, always showing up with some new story, a bag of pastries, and that effortless charm she never seemed to outgrow. She was part of our holidays, birthdays, lazy Sundays. I never questioned her presence. Why would I? That day, I was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, flipping through boxes of old photos for our anniversary slideshow. The kids were at school, and the house smelled like warm cinnamon and fabric softener. I was humming to myself, half lost in the past. I found one from that family trip to Carolina, the year we all got sunburned and swore never to rent that beach house again. Marcus had on that ridiculous Hawaiian shirt. Lily was beside him, mid-laugh. I smiled. But then, something caught me, just behind the laughter, his eyes on her, soft, focused, too focused. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. At first I told myself I was being ridiculous. People look at each other all the time. It doesn't mean anything. I tucked the photo back in the pile and kept working, trying to shake off the unease. But my mind wouldn't let it go. That look, it wasn't just friendly. It felt loaded. Familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Still, I brushed it off. I was tired. Maybe I was overanalyzing. That's what we do sometimes, isn't it? Fill in blanks where none exist. But then the doubts started crawling into places they didn't belong. I remembered a text I once saw pop up on Marcus's phone months ago. Just a "thanks for yesterday" from Lily. Harmless at the time, until I realized I had no idea what yesterday had been. I thought about all those times she showed up unannounced, the way Marcus would light up when she entered a room. Was I only just now noticing what had been there all along? Or had I been ignoring it on purpose? It got worse when I found the old voicemail, one I hadn't deleted. Her voice, soft, almost shaky. I miss the way things used to be. That's all she said. No name, no context. But suddenly, everything had context. After that, I started looking at everything differently. The glances at dinner, the whispered conversations in the hallway, the inside jokes I wasn't part of. It was like someone had turned on a light in a room I didn't know I'd been sitting in. I went back to the photos, the texts, even my own memories, combing through them with a lens I never wanted to need. And there it was, the same pattern, hiding in plain sight. His hand brushing her back at a barbecue. The way she always sat next to him, not me. I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. It felt like screaming into water, pointless, muffled, exhausting. Instead, I went quiet. I let the silence stretch, like a thread pulled taut. I smiled when I needed to, nodded in the right places, but something inside me had shifted. The safety I once felt in our home, in my marriage, in my family, it had cracked. And once there's a crack, no matter how small, it starts to spread. What I thought was loyalty had been slowly rotting in plain sight. I don't know exactly when I stopped grieving and started investigating. It wasn't a grand moment, just a quiet decision made over morning coffee, staring at the way Marcus stirred his cup like nothing was wrong. That's when I knew. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to find it myself. So I did. Calendar apps, old email threads, social media tags, each little detail a breadcrumb. I wasn't searching for closure anymore. I was building a case, and the deeper I dug, the more the timeline unraveled. It didn't start last year, or even a few years ago, like I feared. No, it went back further. So far back, it made me sick. They were already involved before Marcus and I even said, "I do." I found a message from Lily to him, dated 6 months before our wedding, saved in an old cloud backup I hadn't touched in years. It said, "I hate pretending." Short, cold, devastating. That's when it hit me. On the day I walked down the aisle, Lily had already betrayed me. She smiled through my fittings, fixed my veil, toasted us at the reception. And all the while, she was sleeping with the man I was promising forever to. It became an obsession, piecing together every moment that now felt poisoned. The night Marcus said he had a late meeting and Lily happened to crash on our couch. The weekend I was in labor with our first child, and he missed my calls, said his phone had died. And now I know who was charging his attention. Every birthday, every holiday, every seemingly normal moment had a shadow behind it. I saw it all differently now, like replaying a film with new subtitles. She'd watched me build a life, and brick by brick, helped Marcus chip away at it from the other side. And he let her. That's what gutted me. Not the sex, not even the secrecy, but the willingness. The ease with which they erased my trust while sitting at my table, drinking my coffee, kissing my kids goodnight. I wondered how many times I'd hug them both on the same day, never knowing I was holding betrayal in both arms. But I didn't fall apart. Not outwardly. Not where anyone could see. I learned quickly that survival doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it looks like smiling while you study the map of their deceit and begin drafting a plan of your own. I never confronted them, not even when I had enough proof to burn the whole thing down. What would be the point? To see them lie again? To hear Lily spin her web with that same syrupy voice she used to tell my children bedtime stories? No, I wanted something different, something cleaner, something final. So instead of shouting, I started planning, quietly, intentionally. Every night after the house went still, I opened a blank notebook and began writing everything down. Dates, hotel confirmations, times Marcus claimed to be at the gym. Even screen captures of their messages. Some deleted, some forgotten in digital corners they never thought I'd find. I traced the affair like a forensic analyst, mapping out 10 years of secrets with the precision of someone who no longer had anything to lose. They had built their story in the dark, brick by brick. I would tear it down in the light, one beam at a time. They had 10 years of secrets. I would give them 5 minutes of clarity that would last forever. I became an actress in my own life. Every smile was rehearsed, every casual touch choreographed. I played the devoted wife, the loving sister, the woman who had it all together. No one saw the woman underneath, the one calculating behind the casserole dishes and PTA meetings. I kept things normal, painfully normal, because I knew the storm I was building had to arrive beneath a clear sky. That's the thing about revenge. The quieter it walks in, the louder it lands. I started seeing a therapist, which helped me not fall apart. But I also saw a lawyer and a private investigator who didn't flinch when I said, "I want everything." And he got it. Records, surveillance, receipts. I asked for dates and got timestamps. I asked for facts and got evidence. I never knew how empowering it could be to know, really know. Every corner of their betrayal was now mine to hold and shape. I didn't tell a soul. Not my friends, not my co-workers, not even my mother. Especially not her. I wanted no interruptions, no pity, no distractions, just control. That was the only thing I hadn't felt in years, and now that I had it, I held on like hell. The idea came to me while Marcus was bragging at dinner about his recent promotion. He went on and on about legacy and milestones, swirling his wine like he was some misunderstood genius. Lily laughed too hard at his jokes, as always, and I just nodded, tucking the idea away. That night, after they left the room, after the kids were asleep, and I was alone in the silence, I opened my laptop and started planning a celebration. A milestone dinner, I called it, for his career, for his legacy. I spared no detail. I rented the private room at his favorite restaurant, hired a photographer, ordered customized invitations with gold lettering. I even asked Lily to help me plan it, because of course I did. She said yes, thrilled to be included. She had no idea she was arranging her own public undoing. It felt poetic in a way, like letting the villain build the stage for their final scene. Every yes she gave me was another step toward the edge of the cliff. Meanwhile, I kept organizing the evidence into a presentation, something clean, impactful, undeniable, a slideshow. I knew it had to feel personal, intimate, the kind of thing that doesn't just expose, it brands, something they'd never walk away from without carrying scars. The guest list came together easily, our closest friends, family, a few of Marcus's colleagues, even neighbors we barely spoke to. I wanted witnesses, people who'd seen our smiles, our holiday cards, the illusion of a perfect marriage. I wanted the reveal to echo. I made sure everyone had a reason to be there, including Lily. I called her myself and said, "I can't do this without you." The irony nearly choked me, but she laughed and said, "Of course, I'll be there." Each day leading up to the dinner, I rehearsed, not just the slideshow, but my smile, my posture, my tone. I wasn't going to be the scorned wife or the fragile sister. I was going to be elegance with a blade beneath the gown. I wanted them to remember the calm in my voice, the precision of it all. Because this wasn't about screaming, this was about permanence. They thought it was a celebration. It was a reckoning. The night of the dinner, everything looked perfect. Candles flickered along the linen-covered tables. Soft jazz drifted through the room. Laughter rose and fell like background music. I floated through it all like the woman everyone expected me to be, poised, gracious, glowing with pride for my husband. Marcus wore his favorite navy suit, the one I used to love before I learned the hands that buttoned it had betrayed me. Lily arrived in red. Of course she did, always needing to be noticed. People clinked glasses and complimented the food, unaware they were seated at the edge of a story they'd never forget. Marcus leaned in to whisper something about how proud he was of the evening, how I always knew how to bring people together. I smiled so wide it hurt. If only he knew what kind of togetherness I had in mind. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't quiver. I'd practiced for this moment in silence, for weeks. And now it was here. When the desserts were cleared and the room was warm with wine and conversation, I stood up, tapped my glass once. Light laughter, a few teasing uh-ohs. I raised my glass and said, "Tonight, we celebrate partnership, sacrifice, and most of all, truth." There was a pause, the kind that hangs in the air just long enough to make people tilt their heads. I smiled through it, then gave a subtle nod to the AV technician I'd hired. The lights dimmed. The screen behind me lit up. At first, it looked like the start of a sweet montage. Marcus as a young man, holding our first baby, vacations, birthday candles. People cooed, some clapped. But then came the shift. The music cut. The next slide showed a hotel receipt. Time-stamped during a weekend, I was out of town for a funeral. Then came screenshots, messages, photos taken from parking lots and hotel lobbies. Her voice on a recording, whispering his name. At first, people didn't move. Then came the sharp inhales, the quiet gasps, the scraping of chairs. I didn't look at Marcus. I didn't have to. I could feel his panic radiating across the table like heat. Lily's face went ghostly pale. Her lipstick seemed too bright, too loud against the silence. Marcus tried to stand. I lifted my hand, just a small, calm motion, and he froze. "You had your turn to speak behind my back," I said clearly. "Now I speak in front of everyone." I scanned the room slowly, letting the silence stretch until it felt like something sacred. People didn't know where to look. Some stared at their plates, some at me, a few directly at Marcus and Lily, as if watching a play where the actors had forgotten their lines. No one said a word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there in my calmest dress, with my calmest voice, and let the truth speak louder than anything I ever could. I closed the presentation myself, walked back to my seat, and took a sip of wine. Not a drop spilled, not a single hand trembled. Marcus sat there frozen, his mouth open but empty of words. Lily's eyes brimmed with tears, but they weren't the kind that earned sympathy anymore. They were the kind that made people uncomfortable, the kind that came too late. And then something unexpected happened. It started with a slow clap, then another, and another. Not for the slideshow, not for the drama, but for me, for standing there and refusing to break, for refusing to be quiet. The applause wasn't for my pain, it was for my power. After that night, everything moved fast, because I made sure it did. The next morning, my lawyer filed the divorce papers. No warnings, no second chances, just a clean, hard line in the sand. Marcus tried calling, of course, left voicemails that swung wildly between apologies and insults. I didn't listen. I'd heard enough. I wasn't interested in healing what he had broken so methodically over a decade. I wasn't looking for closure. I was looking for justice, and I got it. The settlement was generous, to put it mildly. I knew the right angles, the right pressure points. Marcus didn't just lose a wife, he lost half his reputation, half his assets, and slowly but surely the people who used to laugh at his jokes. Our social circle didn't rally around him the way he probably expected. People weren't blind anymore. They saw what he'd done, not just to me, but to our kids, our home, our future. Lily didn't fare much better. Her job? Gone. Turns out HR departments don't love being associated with scandals. Her friends? Scattered. Even my mother, who always had a soft spot for her, stopped taking her calls. The family closed ranks, and for once, I was at the center, not the periphery. I didn't hide, I lived. I went back to school for a while, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I learned how to swim again, really swim, not just float through things. I traveled alone for the first time in years. Paris, Lisbon, Tokyo, places I used to dream about while folding laundry. I took the kids on a road trip without a plan, just a playlist and gas in the tank. For once, my days weren't about managing someone else's moods. They were mine. And then came the memoir. Sistered. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Everyone who mattered knew. It wasn't a revenge piece. It was a reckoning in prose. Raw, unfiltered, but graceful in its own way. I wrote in the same way I lived now, with clarity, strength, and zero tolerance for pretense. The book hit bestseller lists within weeks. Book clubs dissected it. Morning shows invited me on. I said yes to all of it. Why not? People would ask in interviews, "Do you ever think about forgiving them?" And I'd smile, steady and soft, like someone who's already won the quietest kind of war. Forgiveness isn't something you owe, I'd say. Sometimes, survival is the best revenge. Every so often, I'd hear whispers. Marcus showing up alone to parties, Lily trying to mend friendships that no longer had space for her. They lived in the shadow of what they'd done, always just outside the frame. I didn't need to gloat. Their silence was enough. Their absence from everything that mattered to me now. That was enough. I had turned their betrayal into something they couldn't control, my voice, my truth, my story. And it wasn't just about them anymore. Women wrote to me. Strangers who saw themselves in my words, in the cracks I once tried so hard to cover up. They shared their own betrayals, their own silences, and how they were finally ready to speak. That, more than the book sales, more than the applause, was what made it worth it. My pain had grown roots. My healing had made room for others. They thought they'd stolen my future, but all they did was give me a stronger one.